provide. You know what, though? We're going to figure out where we're going for the next battleground so I can stop rambling about awkward solo top lanes. Gale Force taking us to Cursed Hollow for game number 2. After HeroesHearth losing that first game, is going to select the first pick.
And this is, I have mixed feelings about this because we know that old Gale Force, and even now, they like to play a lot around the global game. They like to play a lot around that, but they have struggled in the mid game when it comes to capturing tributes and when to know those opportunities. And a lot of those, I guess, problems from last year have kind of snuck up at times here this year. I'm sure they've looked a lot within themselves, practiced a lot. They looked a lot better, I think, in the later part of Phase 1, obviously coming up short there at the end, but coming out here, they definitely look like a team who are drafting differently, looking at a different style, but we'll see if they can mix in some of that old stuff, because I think you can find those opportunities to kind of mix things up, maybe even get an old school Michael Udall-Falstad, which he's actually done incredibly well on so far in the few games he's played.
I will say I don't fall totally in the Falstad department after the Eastern Clash, but I definitely have like a time and a place type deal, and Cursed Hollow is without a doubt one of those maps that you can expect him to kind of show up. Honestly, I'm at the point where I take a Falstad over Dahaka, like in terms of like in a lot of, not in all cases, but a lot of the cases, just because I mean it's just the risk that they provide, and mainly Dahaka with the predictability of brush stock compared to some of the other trade-offs. Either way, though, we got Cursed Hollow draft kicking off. I'm going to just put out a wild suggestion here. Medivh is not going to make it through the bans. The question is which team bans it, and I'm going to go with a wilder one here. Whatever one doesn't ban it, the other one will. Malfurion taken off. I guess Gale Force has to be the victim here. Oh, it's not instant, so...
Maybe they really like the Maiev. They're like, we'll let you have the Medivh if we'll take the Maiev.
On a map like Cursed Hollow, you think you really can take that type of risk? Mainly when I say that type of risk, what I'm talking about is the information controlled by Raven. Raven on Cursed Hollow, not even considering all the insane portal adjustments that you can get, it is to not be able to stop boss information is detrimental, especially on double boss plays that we know to pretty much be inevitable on Cursed Hollow.
I wonder if they might even consider a Hanzo ban, just due to the fact that it's unlikely you'll take Hanzo in your 1-2 if you're Gale Force.
So might as well.
And if it's in the 2-3 spot for HeroesHearth, you know how much they love that on the side of HeroesHearth.
I actually think that's, especially because the second ban from Gale Force was willing to commit to the Hanzo, so they kind of, you know, really want to make sure HeroesHearth don't have that comfortably. They wait 52 seconds to give us what I thought was a pretty sure answer. But I do really like the Hanzo suggestion, actually. It removes that kind of double boss fear and a lot of the comfort on the side of HeroesHearth. HeroesHearth with the Malfurion ban. This is one of those beautiful moments. The Medivh was taken out, but the Malfurion ban comes in. Do they go with the first pick? It's going to be the Maiev. I was going to say, do they put higher priority onto supports? Because this is where we've seen this from them already, right? Malfurion comes out in the ban phase, but they got a Medivh within every one of those drafts. Then the Uther ban comes out in the later stages while Stukov is picked up on the other side. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how Lili was born. But now, the Stukov is high probability here. We have seen one team in all of North America pick Uther, one, and it was Tempo Storm yesterday. So let's just say that, you know, maybe HeroesHearth is off on the train. What is going to be that tier 3, and how much does Gale Force commit towards the support problem or hypothetical problem in the draft?
Maybe just go Stukov, Garrosh, and figure it out after that. Find out. You know, the other thing is, Gale Force is not a Hanzo team. We have a few teams in North America that just straight up don't really play him. They only have 2 games logged on Hanzo, and that's when Hanzo was at his peak.
Yeah,
so
when he was almost undoubtedly, you need to learn this hero. I would argue Maiev, maybe now, even pre-nerfs, especially pre-nerfs.
Ooh.
Logical decision, boys.
Yeah, but is this setting up maybe something a little bit wild towards the later part?
Are we talking... Well, I mean, you are right in the fact that cheese-wise, opportunities are great, but also maybe a double gray main dive, all-in kind of play style. Abathur enables a lot of unique compositions, and so does Tyrael, so I like it. Very open-ended, kind of generic. A lot of people don't realize this, but I mean, Tyrael is even one of the better hat targets in the game. Not only can he skirmish pretty effectively, but Abathur does best with mobility heroes for his hat because, conveniently enough, a lot of his spike damage from his W is not ever going to land, and you pretty much can't get more than 2 Qs on a target unless you have somebody chasing, tracking him down. Tyrael's great at that. Eldruin, Smite, all the things of the like.
Zoom, zoom. So Maiev, do we get the Hanzo now, or are you afraid of that potential dive? it's really weird that I'm going to say this, but did EU have any influence earlier? Because we actually saw 2 Judgment games. They weren't that successful, though.
Yeah, yeah, it didn't look as good. And also, because Stukov made it through, then we can assume that's going to be picked up here. HeroesHearth will end up going with the Stukov. There's the gray main. A lot higher gray main than we normally see. I'm going to argue that's purely because of the threat of the Tyrael and Abathur on the other side of the table. They want to remove, for anybody who has now somehow kind of seen the classic sanctification into double gray main, the answer is if you're afraid of one, go for the throw. 2 puppies is infinitely more scary because one of those puppies is kind of on steroids.
I also wonder, diving this style, because we've seen Gale Force bust out a handful of Kerrigan games. Stukov is just like, it ain't happening.
Kerrigan on Cursed Hollow.
I know, right? If it's not Gale Force, I wouldn't even suggest this.
Kerrigan on Tomb, Dragon, Shrines, I get it. But Cursed, I mean, I pretty much am counting the clock. I watch you spin at a combo.
I blame Tempo and Gale Force for even thinking it, because before then, I would have just, before the first part, I would be like, never.
I mean, you're right.
Maybe we get an Illidan, because that's an Arthas band.
And the gray main deny. We saw what Illidan could do with the Eastern Clash. For anybody who didn't catch it out, I believe it was Hugo off of the 1? It was Hugo was the guy who was kind of the one track, but I don't remember the roster.
Yeah.
But they absolutely dominated. It was so pretty to watch the Illidan play. No, it was on Cursed.
It was on Cursed. It was on Cursed. I mean, HeroesHearth has to be considering that it could be the Illidan.
All right, so let's look at all the tools available. If it is an Illidan, and assume it's an Illidan, is it worth this ban? They're looking like the answer is not. What do you have left to be able to stop an Illidan? Maev's pretty good at that. Gray main.
Garrosh is still around.
Yes, but would you expect your opponents to be able to pick that up? The answer is probably not. So generally speaking, you're comfortable not committing the ban to it because of the Garrosh, or likely comfortable not committing to it. But Garrosh Abathur's scary too.
The good news for Gale Force is they have last pick, so they still do not have to show what that X Factor hero is going to be.
You're right, they can wait it out. But the Garrosh it's not like it's a hard pick for HeroesHearth unless they're going Diablo. That's the only other one I can see them going into. Not only because Ishbu is an absolute terror on the Diablo, but also just because the map accents that pretty well. It does okay into Tyrael. It's mainly if one of these squishies that we can expect to be selected, which at this point you would go, is that Tracer, which probably not going to be the case, or I would suggest, you know, be careful with the Tracer pick in this type of situation, because how vulnerable and susceptible it would be to that kill potential.
Tracer also would kind of fall into your primary damage dealer at this point, and that oftentimes scares me unless you're leaving Tyrael alone on that front side, which generally doesn't happen either. But I guess with Abathur, maybe you can kind of play around that. We'll see what we got here.
This is interesting. Rhaegar, Sonya. Very, very simple kind of old school composition for them. Generic, can go in any direction. The Arthas ban might be something they wish had not banned out if they had the intent of moving into the Illidan at this point in time, right? The Arthas ban would have been great in this composition as that 5th slot. So we'll find out what it's going to be.
HeroesHearth. Obviously, we still need to tank on the front line. I love the Diablo pick that you were talking about. Obviously, does really well on Cursed Hollow. We saw Tempo pick up with that towards the later part of the game once you get 13-16. It's very difficult to deal with, so we'll see if they do want to go down that route. Does HeroesHearth. Obviously, the Garrosh still kind of lurking about, and you've got a lot of melee there. We'll see if they want to commit to it.
What do we... Another hero I haven't put too much consideration towards would be the Dahaka, just to kind of try and help out. I know we have the Maiev already, but just because the Abathur and the pressure are out on the map, there it is, Dahaka Diablo. Not sure how I feel about that, especially because I want this to be an Illidan really bad now. mainly because Illidan dongles on Dahaka in a 1v1. He smashes it. Illidan is probably one of the best offlaners, if not the best offlaner in the game. He has a lot of wave clear individually. He can pressure front walls extremely effectively. Even if you aren't matching the Dahaka, the side pressure that it would provide into a different lane would be very detrimental. Granted, because they committed to the Sonya, no backline poke would make it really hard to get threat in the 3-man at a different section of the map. If it's not that, then I normally would be like Hanzo, but because the Abathur, it feels like a little bit too much on the Hanzo department, but I would rather that over Tracer. I feel like.
You could always just keep it super safe and go Tychus. Yeah, Tychus has the Relentless Soldier, so if Diablo does get on you, you can get that armor when you get stunned, so you don't necessarily have to worry about that. Plus, Diablo does not do well against Tychus, especially once he starts to stack up those souls.
Cassia. Didn't even cross my mind, but now that we see it, like it a lot here. Gale Force gonna throw out those blinds. Be able to slow things down a little bit. Very melee focused still, but when we look at the damage dealers, we have Maiev, Greymane, and then beyond that point, I mean, Dahaka, Stukov, Diablo, all those are very auto attack focused. Not the Maiev, but everybody else, I think. And Maiev still needs autos. It's just, it's not, you know, 100 to 0 like a traditional mage maybe.
I really worry about the Cassia just because her auto attack range is much shorter. I imagine we'll see the Thunderstroke build going into that Q build to try and stack that up as opposed to the Charge Strikes. Yeah. I think the Charge Strikes would work well, but in terms of just for the lack of safety, I think that would be a little bit of a safer look. In case I can't get these autos in, your abilities still have good range, but your auto attack range is much shorter than your traditional one. And if you get any type of that dive, Diablo gets on you, flips you back into that pool, and you get a Greymane, Dahaka, just about everything on you, and a Maiev, even maybe jumping over a wall and grabbing you, you're in a very susceptible position. So I'm curious to see how the Cassia plays out here.
No, I agree with you. The Diablo versus the Cassia, we talked about, like, yeah, what is this last one going to be? But the Diablo might bring a lot of pain here towards that Cassia and the risky positioning, but there's always that sanctification to keep Gale Force alive if necessary, as we are here on Cursed Hollow for Game 2 between HeroesHearth and Gale Force. And I'm just saying, I'm really glad we got ourselves an Abathur. I'm surprised my brain immediately was just like, obviously the Stukov has to be picked up here in the 1-2 because it's been so rigid for North America so far. But the fact that we do end up getting the Abby, getting a little bit more creative playstyle, he actually is my favorite hero.
You know, it's interesting when you look globally because Abathur was one of the most banned heroes in Korea and Europe throughout the first part of the year. And then all of a sudden, it's like Abathur doesn't have the same type of priority anymore.
I view Abathur, he is the new Tyrael for me, for North America, I think, is kind of the best way to put it here. And what I mean by that is it's a hero that North America looks at and we go, yeah, he's really good. We know he's good. He's a problem. But the question is, do we really want to take the time to learn to play with, against, or around him to the level that we might need to? More often than not, it feels like it's new.
It's been interesting because also the change-up has been in the level 1 talent. Going on the heal, when you do hit that Carapace on there, instead this time we're going into the Spike Burst, making sure you get a little bit more cooldown reduction, a little bit more range. So, you know, as you said, getting onto those front lines, having that range, that's one way to close the distance, but with Sonya in there, block charges, you know, do work really well, especially when you look at the likes of Greymane. You don't have fast auto attackers on the side of HeroesHearth, so you'll get a lot out of those block charges, and maybe you get Sonya had it in there. Maybe you do get the Tyrael in there. I mean, there's a lot of potential hat targets.
Is this going to be like old Super Sonya composition? When I say what old Super Sonya compositions used to be Tyrael, Abathur, Sonya, and then Arthas, Jaina as the pairing. That's why I was talking about, ooh, Arthas in that last slot would be so good. Using the Arthas and Jaina to slow down, the Smite to speed you up, and then using the Adrenal Overload Sonya, which back in full auto attack Sonya was ridiculous amount of single target damage. She could kill tanks, she could kill everybody. She wasn't afraid of any single soul on the battlefield. I don't know if we're going to get the Adrenal Overload, but definitely I think thought process-wise with this composition, I would like to see more emphasis into the B-Kid is going to be the beefcake and the problem on that Sonya than the look at my Cassia clone, look at the, you know, Cassia damage output.
Both teams joining here. There's the Diablo, the charge, the flip, but B-Kid's going to whirlwind right back into the likes of HeroesHearth, who are taking a lot of damage from that.
Yeah, that was an insane amount of damage there from B-Kid, and you saw he did not hesitate for a moment. Seeing that many minions, that many heroes, he's like, we're going to go ahead and whirlwind all the way through this. He managed to chunk down at least 3 members, down 10-15% of their HP for HeroesHearth while completely remaining at 100% HP. Something HeroesHearth might need to kind of keep behind, or at least less effective in these fights as things go on. I'm trying to figure out how much crowd control. The Diablo initiation you can expect to open up, but beyond that, there's only going to be the silence, the tether, or the drag, and drag is not going to be one of the focused onto Sonya most of the time in these games.
We got your Adrenal Overlord, by the way.
Dude, they're going Super Sonya. I love it. I hope this isn't a Cassia hat game. I really hope that. No, I'm dead serious. Like, I really hope that BK gets a lot of the hats here, and we watch the Super Sonya comp, because I don't think if they commit the hat to Cassia, I don't think they have the damage output and survivability. But Sonya, with a full W hat damage build, it is insane what she can make happen.
I wonder if you could maybe, look, like you time your charge strikes. The minute that's done, then I'm switching over to Sonya. Right, for Cassia to just bust out those rapid auto attacks with charge strikes that do the AoE. But I love the Sonya. If I can get Sonya, also Sonya's level 4, obviously, you get the healing off of it, but you get the bonus damage towards mercs. So you can always have a Sonya get a little bit quicker clear on those as well, and it looks like that's actually what she's going to do on the Siege Giant.
So since we see them mixing it up a little bit, are we going to see... I'm pretty confident on the rework that it's at 7, the new adjustment with Shot of Fury transitioning over, and then go with the auto attack passive after the Seismic Slam to get the bonus damage, essentially simulating the old follow through. I don't know. It's like it's not the exact same, obviously, and it's still going to be a weaker version. But since we see the Adrenal Overload, there's a lot of emphasis into who's getting auto attack damage here. I'm just trying to figure out where they can make up for that.
I want it. We'll see if they can get it. We're about a 1/10 of a level away from finding out where will we go.
HeroesHearth has gotten a lot of damage out on the map macro-wise. Enough to gain, you know, look at this bottom front wall, or look at the lack thereof, I guess probably the better way to put that one. And that's common in Diabathur compositions. Illidan generally is the great at stopping this. Sonya needs to tread lightly down here. Arth, only man to show himself. Still gonna, it's going to be standard Sonya build here. We aren't going with auto attack, sadly.
Abathur was holding on to his talent for a few as well. Ended up going into Mule, trying to keep the structures alive.
Not a huge fan of that. I'll talk about that in a bit, as we got a Coral coming out here in a minute.
See Biggie on the retreat, puts down a major blind there, and the Fend going in, getting that big-time damage. As we're going to see Maev take first blood as Arthon goes down.
It's going to lead to a second tribute here for HeroesHearth Esports. Down only 3/4 of a level. Not even really a 3/4 of a level. Both tributes with an Abathur composition. This is looking good for GFE to be able to set this game up well. McIntyre trying to go out, zone off best he can. Nice drag. Follow up from Ishbu.
Biggie getting out of there. Of course, as Cassia, you do have that built-in physical armor when you are moving. So as long as you just keep moving, those auto attacks do not hurt as much. But as you said, a slight experience lead for HeroesHearth. And with 2 tributes captured, depending on the timing of this next one, you don't necessarily have to do much. They've obtained a lot of control of this just by taking those. You don't expect that out of Abathur compositions to take the first 2 tributes. Yeah,
no, it's not that common to be able to see that here from them, but there is enough experience. They're probably going to forfeit over this next one. BK already starting over the night camp. Bringing it back to the Mule a little bit here. The Mule has been meta, honestly, it feels like, for Abathur now at this point in time, especially on maps like Sky Temple. We see it once in a while on some of the others, but on Cursed it's still a bit more up for debate, and mainly just because we see the damage picked up at 1 and not going with the full shield slow build, right, where we see that kind of off-supporting Abathur. I would have liked to see more commitment towards damage. Go with the stab damage, focus on getting that damage out, because you're going to be committing your hat to a target to keep them up a lot. Yes, the Mule has gotten a lot of value on the 4 on bottom, but I guess it deters early bosses from having any relevance. And beyond that point, it does feel like it's kind of hoping for your opponent to make a mistake with the rotations rather than being a proactive talent. But we'll look out what our little robot buddy can do here.
I'm with you on that one. You know, I think Mule is a situational thing. I think Sky Temple is maybe a almost always thing.
Yeah.
But I agree with you here on Cursed Hollow. But both teams do pick up their respective bosses, and with Cursed Point almost here for Gale Force, depending on when this spawns, see how much value this gets. Obviously, Abathur, as you mentioned, with that Mule, you know, depending on how much Dahaka gets done, you know, they might be able to hold on to that bottom fort, and Gale Force might come out with a head on the trade, I should say.
Figure out what happens. This tribute's going to be a tough question for Gale Force, I feel like, more than HeroesHearth, just because the trade-off of the Dahaka split pushing with that boss. This is a free clear for HeroesHearth on the top half. The Abathur clone, when that comes out, the Sanctification. There's a lot of cooldowns that need to be used well and effectively. And this top tribute, I feel like, is going to force them to kind of display that cleanly.
Dahaka's getting mad push on that bottom lane. I mean, just ripping through that. Abathur, no matter what he does, has not been enough. But the big-time thing is this fight right here. And when Dahaka will come in, you can see Akaface being very safe with his positioning. Ishbu on the front line, forced to use that APOC Dread.
Nice Ancestral, though, from Akaface, and he's able to keep him alive. BBJ does not share the same fate, as that was a lot of damage. Arthlon, go ahead and use the Warden's Cage, locking it down. That ball bouncing around to every single member here. But Gale Force ended up going 2 for 1 so far, but they are not done yet. Nice Ancient Spear there onto Ishbu. Locks in the 3rd kill. 3 for 1 and a curse behind it. Gale Force pull far ahead in this game.
When you're an Abathur player, this is when you thrive. If you're an Abathur player and your team gets the curse, you hat 1 minion, you press W for your spike burst, especially with the upgrade. You just hit one of your frontline minions. They have 1 health. You will clear everybody. Your experience will amp up so much in this game. You can see Abathur just kind of enabling that wave there. Spawning the Locust is another good way to do that. And you can find so many ways to be impactful as Abathur. And now with that, Gale Force can kind of target their approach. You can send a 4-man approach if you want. You can target structures more, but it looks like HeroesHearth is going to meet them.
They're going to go in. Silence already used onto BKid, but he's going to be comfortable now. Wrath of the Berserker gets used, but McIntyre lands that drag and the isolation. Ishbu with the follow-up flip over. Not going to have the overcharged shadow charge, there. Within time, Tether pulls back. Look at Big E with that Fen damage, forcing out the vault. Ishbu comes in again. Lurking Arm set down, but it is doing just that, man. It's just a lurker, because right now Big Impact isn't afraid of anything with that hat. They go in.
Strikes Dread.
It is just slaying with that Adrenal Overload.
Oh my. The Siege Giants, however, going to be clearing out these minions. Akaface was taking some damage. He will not make it out. Goes ahead and uses that Ancestral. Now Biggie, he is here with the clone of Cassia. He's got to get out, but it looks like Ishbu's not going to let him.
Yeah, there's no way you get away from this one. Mainly with the diabolical momentum.
Wait, did he get Greymane on the backside? Did you don't just get Greymane?
He did.
Oh, man.
That is just, that's pretty convenient. The fact that they were able to pick that up.
There's the Abathur push that had manhandled this bottom lane Dreadnought.
Yeah, the setup there with the curse, the pressure out. The biggest thing I want to bring back over to that original fight that kind of led to the curse, led to everything amazing, was Akaface with the Ancestral Healing and the Cleanse on the APOC with that Ishbu had essentially the all-in. That was possible pre-13-16. It's not as possible beyond that point. Or not, I don't want to say it's not as possible, but it's more demanding on Akaface. His Ancestral Healing came out, I'm going to use the word far too late, even though it came out in time, right? We was able to keep the target alive. Now that we've hit the later stages, devastating charge comes in with the flip and using the 16, getting the 2nd hit. It's not going to lead to a, oh, I can cleanse this. It has to be a, oh, I need to predict my Ancestral before all the damage comes in, have the damage come in, have a hit, and then cleanse after. So what I'm trying to say is things look good there for Gale Force, but it was only because of that kind of miracle moment that is not going to be available now that the talents are increasing for HeroesHearth.
A devastating charge you mentioned is currently sitting at 3 stacks. Stacks up to that 5 stacks, getting that bonus percentage damage in post 16, as you were alluding to. Gets that big flip, that reset on the overpower, and HeroesHearth nearing that 16 mark as they defend this middle lane as Gale Force pushing down with the Knights.
This is the last kind of moment of an advantage in this game that HeroesHearth is going to have. Arthlon ended up not saving that Shadow for a moment. I thought he might wait until the 16 and go for an initiation. They're going to still go for it. Ancestral Healing hits this time. Time before the cleanse. Well done there. Big Impact's keeping himself alive, but maybe not for long. Is that Warden Cage locking down all the members. Sanctification comes in, keeping alive Gale Force for a bit longer. They turn on to Arthlon. 1 for 1 so far here. Lurking Arm drops. Buy a bit of time. Mike Udall with that clone trying to make something happen, but Fury got the Eldruin's follow-up and maybe a smidge too far out. There's that devastating charge number 4 for Ishbu. 1 for 2 trade in favor of HeroesHearth.
Fury went in with the clone there, Dread, and the clone disappeared, and then the priority target became Fury.
Yeah.
And that's a feels bad man moment, because you're like, I'm not the one that's supposed to be taking these shots, man. And then once you're the primary target, you're not getting it back.
Also, I was just saying, with that, I'm surprised Arthlon didn't wait to throw down the Warden's Cage over the wall. And the immediate initiation coming out from HeroesHearth seconds after, that's one of those moments where it's like, it feels like if they had actioned that Warden's Cage afterwards, you know, on top of the APOC initiation, I don't know, maybe I'm looking for a little bit too much here out of HeroesHearth Esports, but it was just very curious because the body language indicated one thing and another. Gale Force do end up picking up this boss. McIntyre's trying to delay it, but he's going to be able to do so for Arthlon to get there in time. Big impact, now looking to join in, but the whole brigade is here. Look at HeroesHearth show up. Boss going over to GaleForce Esports. 2 members of GaleForce immediately drop down. Big impact will be the 3rd. Great play here from HeroesHearth.
Ishbu just slamming people in there despite the boss being picked up. Diablo and team come in and clean house. You know, you look at the build, you can see the synergy. Martial Law being picked up for Cassia, and that does the bonus damage to heroes that, and one of those is slowed, and you can see the Spike Burst picked up there at level 16 for Abathur will provide that slow. So Cassia damage could ramp up quite a bit on this Diablo, but definitely not enough there in return from GaleForce. Despite picking up that boss, he lost out on a lot. It looks like we might get our first curse here for HeroesHearth.
They've already got 3 forts down. It's really interesting, man. Curse Hollow, objective-wise, is like one of the most interesting things I feel like I've seen. Hold up here, though. Revisiting this fight, the biggest thing is once Diablo gets here, it gets ugly pretty quick. They do end up getting the burrow to make sure that he can buy as much time there for McIntyre on the Dahaka, but with Diablo showing up with Crone and friends, and it all started, again, because of that sacrifice of the Dahaka. That is one of those moments where you sacrifice your Dahaka and you go, that was so worth it. Thank you.
Dread, when we talk about, you were mentioning the curse a minute ago, Arthalon, he's trying to cage himself out. But we'll see. Can Ishbu save the day this time? There's the flip. There's another stun into the wall, forcing out the Sanctification and the Ancestral. Ishbu is a monster right now.
APOC goes down, but it doesn't connect with anybody. This chokehold is something that they need to be careful of. Now HeroesHearth Crowan finds himself on the opposite side of the lines, tries to get the engage into the Q, gets the disengage, Eyes in the Dark, Beacon, no Ancient Spear for a couple more seconds. Tyrael should have the smite, though. Is he going to throw it down? You know, that's a fool me once, not fool me twice. We find the root landing there from BBJ onto Akaface. He gets the kite around, drag from McIntyre. Ishbu will go with the shadow charge. Not even necessary, holds off now 1 for 2 trade. Ishbu goes in, body blocks there.
You're not here with me, I'm here with you as Ishbu tossing people around and see if he can get the reset. Arthalon locking him in, he's gonna fall down. Biggie, he somehow survived as Fury puts down the holy ground, and GaleForce has just smashed HeroesHearth in that corridor, and they're looking for another.
They're gonna be able to track it down McIntyre here. No mana onto Fury though, making them second guess themselves if he uses that passive walking into those shrubs. Giants made their way to the core. This is one of those moments where you go, don't worry, boys, we got the mule. This is fine. Mule ended up being used on mid, though, so now somebody please help me get rid of these Giants. I would like to not worry about that rotation. How? I mean, from beginning to end. Number 1, this fight starting. Number 2, how long it lasted. And number 3 is how in the hell did GaleForce win it?
Fury. You see the lockdown there? I mean, obviously there's a lot, don't get me wrong, but Fury with that holy ground there, you're gonna see another one. And there is almost no world where I see him surviving here. As you see Biggie, he's on the backside, and then Fury's like, I got you. Like, what?
Yeah, that's back-to-back holy ground. Perfect save, well done. Fury, man, the myth, the legend there on Tyrael, keeping GaleForce in this game.
Well, you have the Abathur to defend against those catapults that will be pushing inevitably on that top lane. Right now, he's got himself positioned mid, probably needs to at least move over, at least put some mines down, those locust nests, to deal with quite a bit as well. But Dread, considering all things, it's 0-0 in tributes. Bosses are still several minutes, actually they're about a minute away on both sides, with the top right one going to spawn a little bit before. Your win condition is a big team fight or a boss at this point.
It's a big enough time difference, though. It's about 15 seconds for top right, earlier spawn than bottom left. And we're 30 seconds out from that one, so 45 from the bottom left. Tribute's going to spawn up. It's in a time frame to where it's really awkward for mainly GaleForce Esports, because they know that their boss is going to be spawning 15 seconds out after this Tribute channel, but then they know their opponent's boss is going to be down here, so you don't get the instant start, immediate double boss play. And we already saw what happened last time. If you go for a greedy boss against HeroesHearth Esports, you're going to have Dahaka come in, you're going to see the stall out. So they have some tough questions to answer over which boss when and how to deal with it. Beyond that point, though, both keep front walls should be near equal removal for both sides, so it's not like one gets an upper hand.
Catapult's starting to mount up. And, I started to think about this. Abathur, generally, you would put him in that lane. Competitive play, sometimes vision is a little bit more important. So maybe using those locusts to keep middle pushed out for that vision control. I'm trying to just find reasons why, obviously, Abathur not pushing out that top lane. But we've got our boss. It is now contested, Dread.
They're going to start it. They're relying a lot on the holy ground opportunities from Fury, baiting that out. McIntyre missing the first drag, something they're going to hope they have off cooldown. Ishbu, though, takes a lot of damage. Apoc's going to be used. Flip onto Akaface. Arthlon comes in with the Warden's Cage, locking all the members down. Unable to escape, but not needing to. There's the Sanctification hitting all 5 of Gale Force. Now trying to look for another holy ground choke. They find it on the McIntyre. Using the passive body blocks, though, from B-Kid. So good. Going to force that burrow. But look at HeroesHearth is going for the core. They don't care. 3 members are going already here as nobody's back. Gale Force immediately starts the back channel, but I don't know if it's going to matter. Shielding on the core is gone.
They've got a gray main. They're on it right now. Arthlon flipped to the other side. Crowan and team taking it down. 70% and falling. 60% and falling. Ishbu's going to go down. Crowan is going to fall. I don't think they're going to do it, Dread. Crowan is gone down. 30%. Siege Giants are there, but it is not going to be enough. Arthlon, the mule goes down as well. He needs to kill the mule.
He needs to kill the mule if he can. 18, 16, unable to do that, and that little boy is going to heal that thing right on up.
Wow.
30 seconds until anybody on the side of HeroesHearth are going to spawn, but these bottom giants have prepped this map ready for Gale Force to be able to turn this game back around, claim this game number 2.
They're literally rolling out the red carpet. Those giants were picked up a long time ago, and those have been pushing, and now 15 seconds till Stukov is back, 18 for Dahaka, and everybody else well behind that. This should be enough for Gale Force to move in as B-Kid on Sonya will shred this core as the rest of the team joins behind him.
Gale Force Esports managed to hold on to Cursed Hollow all the way through to, like, what, 20% left on the core, but turn things around against HeroesHearth and now find themselves at match point.
It seems like Gale Force might be HeroesHearth kryptonite, because this is now the second series that we're seeing Gale Force. Obviously, they won in the first one. Now they're seemingly ahead here. One more game to close it out. HeroesHearth definitely in a tough spot here, in a spot I don't think they anticipated being in.
I want more Fury Stereo. My goodness. That's all I got to say after that last game. I was like, I kind of threw it out. I started out with, like, the metaphor of, like, Abathur is like the new kind of Tyrael, and it feels like we agree he's strong, but we don't really want to play it. I lied. Fury, that was impressive. Multiple sanctifications with more than one target being hit, which is where a lot of the ones that we saw earlier this weekend, I was like, we're saving one target. We aren't getting too much. Multiple holy ground splitting and saving kills. We saw in the last initiation, the fight before that, the boss control being threatened. Everything about Fury's play in that game was very well done. I mean, by no means was it the one-man Tyrael show, but there were some huge plays that I feel like we are always amiss for how relevant that hero is in this current meta. So at this point, I'm just going first pick it, just who cares? Get Fury on that, and I don't see any way Gale Force is going to struggle.
Well, the trust factor, I think you're talking about trusting that Fury's going to make that play. If you actually go back and watch that Dread, you're a Rhaegar, you're at 10% health, what do?
You run, you die.
But what do you do with that? You just throw out your Ancestral.
Oh, yeah, you're like, here
I'm
you go,
dead.
team.
He did not. He held, right?
And
Diablo focused on him. Fury came down for the save. He was able to use his Storm Shield at level 20, was Akaface there on Rhaegar, and that was it. But that is trust that you will be saved by that guy, and Fury is the one making that play. That's what makes that part so cool, even more impressive.
It was just ridiculous. Everything about the play there from Gale Force Esports. We have got to go to a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we'll figure out if Gale Force is able to close out this series. Stick with us.